Hello, in this video I would like to demonstrate the startup and configuration of a steute USB wireless receiver. We have prepared a demo version here with an external power supply, a USB adapter, 3 of our USB receivers and an RF10 wireless switch. The system uses S-Wave technology and we also have a notebook with the steute software, the USB configuration software, which enables us to configure the devices but also to visualize the signals or incoming telegrams. This software is available to download under its article name on our website. But now, in order to communicate with the devices, it is first important that the software is installed. Here on this device, this laptop, we have already done this. Once the software has been correctly installed and started, we then have the screen as illustrated here, as the user interface, and can now perform diverse configurations and settings with the different devices. As we can see here, we have deactivated gray fields which at the moment cannot be clicked. Only when I have selected a device, I will select one of the USB sticks and connect it to our notebook, do I have the chance or rather the necessity to select a COM port at the top of the screen. Here I have the COM port 1, but when I activate the selection window, I can see the COM port 29, which is the correct one for this device. I select it and then press the electronic button, Open COM port 29. Now we see that the gray fields have all become black, and I can now click on these various operational modes in order to use the device in the corresponding way. I would now like to show this using different examples. Let us start at the top. First we find the sniffer mode and the gateway mode. These modes are there in order to visualize all S-Wave protocols which are not generally known to an application. For example, which have not been taught in on the device, allowing us to see whether there are any other S-Wave protocols located near the application. I would like to show this by clicking on the sniffer mode, as shown here, and selecting it. Even though the switch has not been taught in, the signals are still listed or visualized. This is similar with the gateway function. The only difference is that in the one case transmission is with an acknowledge function and in the other case without, but ultimately both facilitate analysis of switches which have not been taught in. In order to file a switch with its address so that only selected switches can communicate with the receiver, there is the receiver or learn mode. First I have to select the learn mode in order to assign the address of this wireless switch to a storage slot or place on the receiver list. Here we can see a list which goes from 0 to 39. That means that every USB receiver has the possibility to file and communicate with up to 40 switches. At the top we can see an address which has already been filed. I will now delete it by clicking on the minus symbol. That means it has been removed from the list, and now we can see that the receiver has 40 free slots for teaching in. In order to continue with this procedure on this switch, let us now look to the right of the screen, where we can see a paintbrush symbol and a plus symbol. I confirm the paintbrush because several addresses have already been filed. I now actuate the switch and, as we can see, the address of this switch is now displayed. A second one now appears because we have diverse switches in the surrounding area, which all wish to communicate their addresses. We know it was the one in the top line, so I select that one, marking it blue. By clicking on the plus symbol, it is added to my list of storage slots. This means that this address of this switch has now been assigned to the receiver and that this address will now be recognized by it. If I now go to the receiver mode, and this will be familiar to many of you already, and double-click on the first line, the screen is cleared and only taught-in switches are now listed. This means that after the switch has been taught in and the receiver mode selected, I now have the guarantee that the signals transmitted by the taught-in switch will be recognized. In this mode, all other switches which also send signals but which have not been taught in are ignored. These are the settings and configuration for the sniffer and gateway functions, and if I want to teach in a switch directly, I take the learn and receiver mode, but there are also further options. For example, the USB receiver can also be configured as a repeater, and I would like to demonstrate that now. First, I take the receiver, the USB stick configured as a receiver, and remove it from the device. Now I take a new USB stick and connect it to the device. As we know, we now have to select a COM port, in this case the COM port 28. I open it and once more see that the gray fields have become black. I can now select the repeater mode. We take 1K, which means that this USB is now configured as a 1K repeater. Even if we remove the USB from the device, it remains a 1K repeater. I can demonstrate this in a little application here. As we know, repeaters are there to amplify signals, and here we have a USB power supply combined with a normal socket. Our receiver, still with its settings and recognizing the address, is connected to our notebook. But in order to communicate with it, we have to select the COM port, which once again we do by opening COM port 29. As we can see, we are now in receiver mode. Via the tab at the top, I go to the window and delete the first line, or with a double click delete the entire screen. The USB stick is now configured as a 1K repeater. It is located here and gets its power from the power supply. The receiver is located at our notebook, which means that the path is no longer directly from the transmitter to the receiver, but from the transmitter to the repeater and then amplified from the repeater to the receiver. We can see this if I actuate the switch. The LED on the USB repeater lights up red and green. That means it is getting signals from the transmitter and passing them on to the receiver. We can follow this clearly if we take a look at the screen. There we can see that all incoming signals are commented with RP_1K, meaning that the signals has come not directly from the transmitter but via the repeater. A 2K repeater configuration is also possible, but is only recommended if the application really requires it. Finally, it is important to mention that the software only serves to visualize the signals. Any control system, such as an PLC, must be regarded separately and implemented as a separate measure, depending on the application.